I want to welcome Ronnie Screwvala as well, who's joining us live on the show. Hi, Ronnie. Hope you can hear me loud.
Hi. How are you? I came in a little early because I was.
Lovely. It's good. It's good to be early than be late. We were just having a chat, while you were coming in with Advaita Kala and Yashovardhanji, and we were trying to make sense, Ronnie, in terms of where we are, with this big crisis which is really looking at us in our faces, which is the crisis of migrant workers. A lot of my friends from Mumbai, from other parts of the country, are calling in to say that the government has just not understood the magnitude of this crisis. So give me your view. Do you think, economically speaking, did the government really understand how grave the situation was?
No, I don't think the government really understood it, primarily because this is that one segment that is neither rural nor urban. It's that in between. And because it's been in between, I don't think everyone expected them to suddenly feel that for a 2-week or a 4-week or a 6-week lockdown, they migrated 4 years, 5 years back, and they'd go rushing back to their homes. So I think that was a substantial shock to them. I think what they didn't anticipate, that a daily wage worker, if he feels inconsistency in his life for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, would be huge. And the reason I'm saying this is we have a very large NGO in our Swadesh Foundation, and we work in rural Maharashtra, Raigad district, 7 blocks. We work with about 1 million people, have 100,000 homes. 30,000 of them are all shut homes, and 20,000 of them, they've all migrated back in the last 3 weeks. So the acute problem there of employment and daily wages for them, plus the health factor, has created a huge crisis.
If all these factors have been working out, Ronnie, if all these factors have been working out, a lot of our viewers who are there on my Facebook page right now and on my Twitter page are all wondering that, there are elections in this country which take place. So much time and energy gets spent in political discourse trying to address this question of poverty. Do you think actually this has to be the right stage for governments and political establishments to start thinking in terms of providing social security to people? Unless you provide social security to people, you're not going to go very far. Is this the right time, the right stage for us to be thinking about this?
It's a mixed job. And again, I'm telling you because we have ground experience on this, again, with our foundation, where we wanted to have all our 1 million people insured. And there was a resistance even to that from them and from everybody else, because insurance can happen when you have a tertiary hospital or access to medical aid. If your access to medical aid is 100 kilometers away, then the impact of some of these things go lower. So I think as broad institutional elements, they sound good. Some of them to implement is really tough. Like 15% of our community there even is Adivasis in tribal belts, for example. And there's the tribal belts are everywhere. Those are those daily wage workers outside of the migrant workers who work in brick factories and local factories there. They are equally badly hit. And they, unlike these people, are moving back, but at least have had some savings. They have zero savings. So I think we're staring at a really setback in terms of many aspects when it comes to the poverty, outside of many other economic challenges that I think we face. Having said that, I wouldn't be envious of being a leader at this stage, because it's a damned if you do and damned if you don't situation.
No, I'm with you. I sometimes ask this question to myself, that what is it that the government could have really done? But Ronnie, now as you move from the entertainment world to the education space and you get yourself more deeply immersed with the story of India's economy, explain to me, when you get hit by a pandemic like COVID, and when you have this number of people today who are all out on the streets of India in various states, what do you expect from a government? What do you think should really have been done in the very first place for us not to have landed up in this kind of a scenario?
I don't think in retrospect this would have worked out any differently, because I think one had to choose at that time between a decision on a lockdown. If everyone said, let's give a 1 week notice period for everyone to move to wherever their geographies would be, I think that would not have necessarily solved the problem. So, we can sit here and look at it with hindsight, but even in hindsight, it would have been, I think the only thing that would have been done is if we had a sense of this, the transportation, the food and delivery, and they're delivering to their homes, that could have been handled a lot more. And I think that's where we lost in state and center politics. Unfortunately, we've lost that in state and center politics.
Are you also not worried, Ronnie? I speak to a lot of my friends again in the film industry and in other sectors, factory owners, and I'm told that the labor which has now gone out of these big cities does not want to come back. Now, if the labor does not want to come back, and if the labor gets stuck with a scenario like this, including some of the points that we have found from this survey, which was done just towards the end of last month, where 50% of the 11,000 workers were surveyed said that stock of ration that would last them for less than a day. If these are the kind of insecurities, I want to know, how does it impact economic cycle, production cycles, even say in the month of June, when maybe this lockdown could possibly potentially have been reversed with far more.
Oh, I think these problems are going to stretch out to December and much longer. I think we're fooling ourselves if we think July will be better than May or September will be better than June. I personally believe it will be tougher, rougher in every sense of the word. To answer your question directly, I'm rooting for the workers. So I think if they want to come back, 50% of them may not come back. They will. People who have migrated don't want to go back, even though they realize that their life in the cities is not that good, primarily because of pride and ego, because they have to go with the tail between their legs. This is what we found. And I've met hundreds of migrants when we were trying to get them to reverse migrate even before COVID. Now they've gone back without their tail between their legs. 50% of them may not come back. The other 50% finally may have a better wage bill, because otherwise they were earning 11 to 15,000 rupees in a city, paying 13,000 rupees for horrible accommodations and food, and sending 1 to 2,000 rupees back home. That equation can change. And I think industries will have to bear the cost of what could have been exploitative labor costs today.
So if I hear you correctly, you're saying, Ronnie, that you anticipate two things. One, that this crisis is not going to reduce in its intensity in any way in the next couple of months. It may extend all the way to December. And you're saying that 50% of the people are not going to come back to the cities. If 50% of people are not going to come back to the cities, Ronnie, I'm just trying to visualize in my mind that how will workflow issues, how will production issues, how will all these issues then end up being impacted if 50% people don't come back?
See, I think water will find its own level. 50% from the nomenclature. What we are speaking to our 20,000 people who've come back, I would say 50% of them have pretty much decided that they may not. Now, they may change their mind if they've offered double their wages to come back, but probability is that they may not. So I also think that today everyone is working very hard to get supply back in place. You want to get back into shape. You want to, 60 days have been closed down. Many people are going to take. But I think the demand is, or the low demand is going to surprise people. And therefore, even if supply chugs up, if you can't match that with demand, you're going to have suppressed demand. And then supply will also have to slow down. So I think that's the water level that will come about. But as I said, I'm rooting for the daily wage workers, that they will have better terms at the end on the other side of this present COVID situation.
Then how do you respond to, this? My producers are playing this graphic, and this is an order which has been passed just a short while back after the Supreme Court's intervention. The government basically wanted to direct firms that they must pay, the salaries to all the workers. The Supreme Court has now stepped in, and the Supreme Court, responding to a petition by the factory owners, by the producers, is saying, well, this is not done. There must be the interests of the factory owners protected as well. Is this not like a double whammy for workers then? A, they don't have a place to stay. And B, well, if you were thinking of getting some social security net, the Supreme Court enters in. How do you move forward then?
Yeah, but Bhupen, it's a triple whammy, because I've spoken to these people who haven't even got their back wages. They didn't get their March salary when they moved out from there. And these are people who are working in the diamond industry and industries which are not so badly hit. It's been quite exploitative. So I think from that perspective, when they come back, I hope that they can manage to leverage their own demand and leverage their own status to do that. That's what I think will happen. It's going to be a demand-supply ratio again for people when they want to come back. But my pen is everyone will want to go back to their original supply. Demand may not be there. It will come back to a certain level, and people will have to realign their production expectations over a period of the next 6 months to a year. And this is on the assumption that we don't have at least one or two more series of even stiffer lockdowns.
So, just imagine and just help me understand. If there was to be, say in the first week of June, if we were to realize that these relaxations that have been given in lockdown 4.0, if they end up creating a scenario where the number of positive cases increases, are you saying that you could be in a scenario, maybe June, July, you could be back to the kind of stiffness that we had seen in lockdown 2.0, 3.0?
I mean, we're all reasonably smart and aware people. I don't think we need to step out of our homes to figure out that is the likelihood of that is higher than 50% right now. There is absolutely no logic that it should not happen. And the way it's happened today, where everyone is a little bit, I mean, if you look at what Bangalore's opened up a little bit, and if I see a little bit of what I've been talking to friends, colleagues, and one of our offices there, it's a little scary because it's just too much of a 180 degrees the other way, and you've sort of been a little bit more abandoned. So I personally, I'm an optimist, but I do believe we need to be realistic in a situation like this. And I don't think half these people will come back till they are very sure. The daily wage workers and migrants have had such a horrible time, such a painful time, that I don't think they're going to come back in a hurry. They'll want to see things stabilize, to see whether they have a really stable job opportunity and not a 1 month job opportunity all over again.
Okay, final question. I'm looking at numbers. 1 lakh is the 1 lakh mark has been breached in a sense of the number of COVID positive cases. So I ask myself, the impact on economy, the impact on politics, the political response. While I take your point that you won't be, nobody would want to be in a position of a leader. But today, Ronnie, can we say this, that the government responded to the situation with deftness? How would you rate the government's response?
No, I would all said and done, I would give it a positive thumbs up for only one reason. We're a complex country. The point of sitting here and looking at hindsight of 60 days is not that easy. I think we could be in a worse place. That 100,000 could have been 1 million, right, in that context. And the point is, we won't be able to cope with it. So I don't think any political leadership or government can take responsibility of that kind of lives. Today, it's in a controllable one where we can say tuberculosis cases, road accident cases, and put all these benchmarks. But we could be in a situation where none of these benchmarks would have been relevant if we had not been able to do some sense of containment.
Okay. Ronnie Screwvala, Yashovardhan Azad, Advaita Kala, thank you so much for joining us on this edition